First of all, I'm sorry that we don't have more of a showing. I'm a little taken back because a lot of people emailed me confirming where is it, what apartment, what time, what exact location. None of those people are here. But anyway, brokers. Look, the important part is we're all going to have some good collaborative discussion. So a couple things before we get to it. Congrats to 2 teams in our office for making the top 25 this month. First is the MSH team. That's Michael Hanya, David Mayer. And then the other is Randy Brew. Congrats.
Congrats, guys.
What happened to you?
Number one sales team in the office this month, MSH team, Michael and David. They put a $27 million house into the contract. And then number one rental team in the office this month, Glazer team. Congrats to you guys.
So many rentals.
All right, so no need to go over any housekeeping. So obviously, guys, I know you're all busy, so thanks for taking the time. I have a few questions that I emailed you guys that you kind of had the chance to go over because I wanted to make sure that everyone has your best answers prepared. So we'll get right into it. And no specific order. Let's just introduce ourselves real quick. Since everyone knows you, I'll just do it myself. Jay Glazer, Danny Davis, Randy Brew, Nick Helmuth, and Andrew Luftig, who technically could be a broker, but
I am a broker.
Yes, technically you could. Andrew, thank you again for being one of the sponsors at the holiday party this year.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, so first question. Let's start with, let's start with Danny, if that's okay. What advice do you give to a seller right now, given what's going on in the market?
Depends on the seller and the property and how realistic they are. But I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, if they absolutely want to sell, then the first thing I tell them, and it's not even specifically to this one seller or any market in general, you price it accurately. Price is key. And if you overprice in this market, or any market for that matter, it will sit. And I've learned over the years, accurate pricing is probably the most important thing to any successful sale. You can't underprice an apartment. If you underprice, you'll get multiple bids. It will go over ask, even in today's market. But you can absolutely overprice, and then you'll sit, and you'll get no offers, and nobody will show up. It's cold. Right. And the market sucks. And there are very few buyers. So, you got to be smart. So what do I tell sellers? That's what I tell them. Mm-hmm. I said, if you want to sell, then you price things accurately for today's market. And it's not easy to price. You can't look at the comps from a year ago. Yeah, you have to look at what's in contract, not what sold in April of 2022. Yep. That's not an accurate comp. So it's tricky. And everyone thinks their apartment is the Taj Mahal and it's worth a lot more than what, we think it's worth.
Right. So what do you say to a seller who says, I understand that your comps are showing you this and I understand the market has softened, but look at my built-ins that I spent X amount on. Look at my cabinets that I spent this much more on. Look at the closet.
Although they're all built-ins that this seller did add.
These built-ins are tremendous, but everybody else's suck.
No, I don't like built-ins.
So, but how do you manage a seller's expectations with things like that they feel so passionate about, that they spent so much on?
That's directed towards me. How to manage expectations, things they've spent money on. It's not easy. I would say you have to. I mean, Danny pretty much hit the nail on the head. You have to. I think from inception, you have to set the expectation of where the market is. I think a lot of owners in the market are guided by brokers who are chasing the market and chasing the information as opposed to dictating the information. So what I mean by that is if you set at inception, my team members have come with me to listing appointments where at the listing appointment, I will establish credibility through saying that the market has shifted, to not look at the comps, to be prepared for a shifting dynamic. And by establishing that protocol up front, the conversations about built-ins and how their apartment is better than others doesn't necessarily have to come up because you've already laid out the landscape of what's going to happen in the process so that when it comes time to discuss pricing or when it comes time to the fact that their home hasn't sold. Although, as Danny said, if it is well priced, it should sell under any market conditions. I do think that is one of the fundamental staples of New York City real estate. So when it comes time to have those conversations about their built-ins, you've really just set the mood up front that the market hasn't taken to their home. It's not something specific about their personal affects or how their home is laid out or their wallpaper or their crocodile sink. It's really more about shifting conditions, and you're able to have those conversations more easily because, again, with us at least, from inception, you are setting that expectation. And I will say, I mean, it's not all rosy-colored glasses. We've lost business by having those conversations up front with prospective sellers because other brokers are willing to say certain things that we're simply not willing to represent in a market that's shifting.
Would you agree, Randy?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the built-ins, it might make their place sell faster or look nicer relative to the competition, but it's not going to add a dollar for dollar amount to the value of the property. And if you're pricing really competitively, maybe even a little bit under the comps, especially in this kind of market, maybe those improvements that they made will help them get more offers or a higher amount than the asking price or something like that.
Right.
We just recently talked to someone just like that. Like they're living in a co-op and they made their apartment nicer than the building is. And it makes it kind of difficult because
Overinvested almost.
yeah, they overinvest in their property.
Yeah.
And so, again, we're having that conversation. I usually like to give people 3 numbers. This is the number that might make you have an auction-like situation or get an over-asked number. This is probably where I feel like right is in the middle, and this is more of an aspirational price. Usually people pick in the middle, except in this market, again, like Danny and Jay said, if you're doing your job properly and you're establishing credibility, it depends on the owner's motivation. If
Right.
they're serious, and then just bringing it back to that, because you told me you have one baby and you have a bookshelf creating a bedroom and your second baby's due in March, how motivated are you to get this thing in contract by January or February?
So Nick, follow up to that if you have anything to add, and then also tell us what you're saying to buyers right now.
Yeah, I mean, in the sales side, I think one of the biggest things that we do is first off, understanding where they're coming from, right? Like, what are their needs? Like, do they need to sell today, or can they hold? What is the time frame, and that also dictates where you want to come in pricing. Like Danny said, you can never underprice an apartment. We had an example in Brooklyn where we went at 1,695 when they wanted 1,895, and we had 300 showings in 2 days and went 500,000 over ask. So there's no way you can underprice an apartment. Every broker came over and said, "I see what you guys did. I can't believe you got them to actually agree to do that strategy." So that works. I think
Do you think that strategy would have worked if you asked 1,895?
not the same results, because I think people saw in this, the property needed work too, so that was part of the problem. And I think that people looked at this the number looked smaller, so that when they got to the pricing of their offer, they felt like they were, it was still a great deal, it wasn't so underpriced that they had to go off $1 million,
Yeah. Got it. What do you say to buyers right now?
I mean, if you're looking for an opportunity, this is a great time to be looking, but don't look for a fire sale. New York City, they're not going to give apartments away during COVID. We've already gone through COVID, which, we're in a shifting market right now, but COVID was probably one of New York's toughest markets. So the fact that we survived that and there wasn't fire sales, don't expect them now. But if you are looking for an opportunity, I think this is a great time to buy. As long as you understand that these are the current market conditions, and you're not looking to get 20% off of apartment, there is some room to get a deal. And the problem right now is inventory. There's just finding that property, because when that one nice property comes out,
Right.
every one of us in this room has somebody for it.
Right. And I think that'll change come the new year. I think a lot of properties are holding back until the new year to come on the market. I think by mid to late Jan, we'll see a pretty decent influx of what you see coming on the market. Do you have anything to add to that, Andrew?
I do, actually.
Yeah.
Shocking.
So we used to talk about buyer's remorse at the walkthrough, right? When the market was, trending upwards, you signed a contract, or seller's remorse, right? Buyers felt like they overpaid, and, you know, the walkthrough, they look at a little scratch and ask for $10,000, you know, off the purchase price. We're seeing that before the contract's signed now. Or on the buy side than the sell side, we have clients that are ghosting us, right? We, you know, get the offer accepted, we push, they even pay a retainer fee, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, or we keep pushing, questionnaire fee, and we're ready to sign a contract, and they literally just stop responding to us. You know, there's no communication. And on the sales side, you know, not so much, but the funny thing is, in a slow market, you know, we want to push because you don't want to lose a deal. In a fast market, you want to push for the same reason. But we have sellers, you can't assume there aren't backup offers. We know right now there's a townhouse, our client went direct, and it's funny, the seller's attorney is part of the seller's LLC entity, and so I know them, and we're, you know, I'm not shy at this point because it's been 2 days. We signed the contract, we literally did the contract over the weekend, now they're not responding to us. So the seller is going with another deal, clearly they're negotiating, you know, with probably their initial offer. But really, listen, we all want to be proactive, we all want to push, but take extra time with clients. We all know deals take more time, right? And consider that, you know, a big part of your role and your job right now to make sure things are buttoned up, make sure things are lined up. And listen, you can only do so much, right? Clients, you know, listen to the news, and we had a deal the other day, we were fine. Our client signed the contract, we released the contract in the wire, emails 10 minutes later, hold up. You know, I'm speaking to my friends this evening. I said, oh no. He pulled the deal the next morning. I said, can we speak? He
Who
refused.
said, which side said that?
My client's the buy side.
Got
I
it.
said, can we speak?
After they had signed the contract?
After we released it, he let us release it to the other side.
Oh, really?
Thankfully, the other side didn't sign and send it back.
Right.
But I said, hey, let's get on the phone. You know, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. You know,
Mhm.
what did your friends say? You know,
And?
he wouldn't give me any specifics.
Right.
Literally, he wouldn't give me information. He said, I don't love it anymore. I don't, you know, I'm not into it anymore. I said, you know, because often, you know, even CPAs don't know how to analyze call for condo financials. Say, let's talk about it. I want to, maybe you can educate me, just playing, you know, a little dumb. But I mean, that happens. It happens.
But
Can I-
where,
can-
where that herd mentality is that nobody wants to be the first one to do something, even though that's the best time to do something, is when everyone else isn't doing it. So then they start to get this buyer's remorse, because like, well, am I the one that's gonna set the trend of the market? Am I the one overpaying? So if you can get your buyer to understand that this is the opportunity, this is why you are ahead of everybody else, and that you shouldn't have remorse, because you should be excited because you were not competing with 50 other people in April when the market changes.
Well, also, just to add to that, I mean, you also have to ask the customer, what is your plan? Is this a 2 or 3 year play, or is it a 5 to 7 year play? If it's a 5 year play, you're not gonna lose. The market is down right now. It is only gonna go up. It might take a year or two. Maybe you could have bought that property for $200,000 less if you waited 6 months. But at the end, when you sell, that's what's important, and you're gonna sell it at a high.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Another, I think the key is a lot of clients, you talk about square footage, right? You have a buyer, they love this property, and then find out Danny messed the square footage up by 100 square feet. And like, oh, now it's the worst property in New York, they don't want it, right? Would never happen, but you know the analogy, clients are obsessed with numbers. Some clients, listen, you have to, you know, understand that that's all they care about, you know, maintenance, real estate taxes, interest rates, and that's where they're fixated. Many clients are obsessing because the world is obsessing, right? The city is obsessing, the country's obsessing. But when I first bought my when I bought my first apartment, my boss at the time said, Andrew, stop. Like, I literally locked my interest rate in. I went to the gym, I was watching CNN, and they said the rates were going down. I was like, oh shit, I have to unlock my rate. You can't unlock your rate, right? It's locked. So I was, you know, flipping out. But a lot of clients lose the idea of like the intrinsic value. This is the property you want. This is the street you want. This is the building you want. You've been saving up. You know, your parents are supporting you. You just got divorced. You just got married. So again, many clients need to know the numbers and need the interest rate where they want it to be. But a lot of clients are there, and you can shift them because, and you're not misleading, you're not pushing them, but they're focused on that for the wrong reasons. They're focused on it because other people are, but they want this place. And you know, maybe their carrying costs are extra $200 a month, but once you explain like all the other value, there's so much value to owning a piece of New York City real estate. It's your home, just got married, this is going on. They get that, and they're like, okay, yeah, what am I, you know, I'll refinance in a year or two. I'm okay with where we are now.
Yeah, that actually, it happened to me in 2008. In July of 2008, my neighbor, I had said to him, I sold him the property. I mean, he's on my floor, just 2 apartments on the floor. And I said to him, if you're gonna leave, come to me, I'll probably buy it from you. So he came to me in July of '08, you know '08, what we're coming up to. I made a deal with him in August of '08. I bought it back from him exactly what I sold it to him for. And no broker was involved, so I was paying about $1,400 a foot for it. And then what happened 3 weeks later? Lehman crashed, and the freaking market blew up. There was no transactions. I think I was the only closing in November of that year. I don't think there was any other closing for the next 6 months. I mean, not that I remember. I mean, do you remember? You were back in the market.
I remember it vividly.
It
yeah.
was. I mean, every day the market was coming down $1,200 to $1,400,
terrible.
1,400 points.
Actually,
It was crazy.
I was an agent at 660 at the time, and surprisingly, the people who led the discussion, they gathered everyone at 660, and the people who led the discussion, not really surprisingly, was Robbie Brown and Deborah Grubman.
Right.
And they're like, "Don't worry,
Yeah.
everything's gonna be okay."
I mean, like, so I went through with the deal. I didn't retrade. I thought that would be in very bad taste. I'm in the business, and I had the opportunity if I really wanted to. But I was like, you know what? I mean, we're going to combine a huge loft, and I know down the line it will make sense. And thank God I went that way, because if not, I would not be living in the city right
If
now.
you're looking to own for 7 to 10 years, why are you making a decision on 7 to 10 months?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also refinancing. Everyone said, I mean, you can refinance in a year or two.
yeah,
Like,
so
I mean,
before
like,
we move
so the
on-
rates aren't so crazy. I mean,
Yep, agreed. Before we move on, let's say you get a call from a buyer, to close the loop on this buyer question, you get a call from a buyer today, and the question is, I'm thinking about buying, but I also see that, the Fed is probably gonna raise rates again today. Maybe should I wait until the spring and see how things are gonna play out? What do you say to that buyer?
I mean, I think it goes back to the same principles everybody's bringing up, both on the buy and sell side. So I think first and foremost, you have to kind of get at the core of what that person's concern is. Are they actually really driven by a couple extra $100 a month in carrying costs, or is it more the idea that they don't want to feel like they have a pie on their face or cake in their face, whatever the expression is? They don't want to feel like they made a bad decision and have the regret of, oh, if I just waited 3 or 4 months. So if you get down to the core need of why they're buying a home, so I'll use myself as an example, which I've been doing a lot lately. I just got board approved in an apartment. I'm closing. It's not that big of a deal. It's only like $27 million apartment. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You have a good lawyer?
No,
You call from the MSH.
I do not have a good lawyer. I have a lawyer in your office who's very good. Anyway, my point is the rates actually went up like 1% to 2% right before I was about to sign the contract. I actually contemplated the whole retrade conversation. I was like, why am I going to actually do the exact opposite of what I would encourage my clients to do? So I didn't do it. A la Danny, I ate it and I just moved on because that's the right thing to do. But the philosophy of it is, I think with the buyers, you're going to get a great opportunity right now. You have less competition, as everybody's saying. You have opportunities where prices are soft. So the sort of 2 pillars are interest rate and price. I think price is always the sexier conversation. So if you really harp on the fact that people are going to get a great transaction price, and then say there's going to be opportunities to potentially refinance out later, and then also unlock the conversation of what type of interest rate products are out there. Especially for our business, we work with a lot of first-time home buyers who are like 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is the only product that exists on planet Earth, when in fact there are a lot more competitive products out there. Interest only, when I started in the business, basically did not exist, and now I would say somewhere between like 35 to 45% of our clients are actually doing interest-only loans. And if you get an interest-only loan, the rate is not only a little bit more competitive, but you're also paying a lower monthly payment. So if you were able to have those conversations about interest rate, you may be able to like step back from that fear of, okay, interest rates might go up another 1%, or might, I want to wait and see, or whatever the conversation is, and then also then go back to that, the options of interest rate, and then also the value that you're getting on the property, and then loop it full circle about like what their core motivation is. Do you have a family? Are you expanding? Are you getting a divorce? Is someone dying? Whatever the circumstances may be, I think that helps tie up the conversation.
I once heard a phrase, and I think it's pretty accurate. In the real estate market, the only way to make money is time, not timing. And I think overall, it's more or less a pretty good mantra to live by, a pretty good plan for buyers and sellers. It's like, if it works for you and now's the time, then you gotta do it, and it is what it is. But to move on to more interesting things, questions at the end.
Because I have a question for them that, you know, in current deal.
Are you okay
That
if we?
touches
Yeah, yeah.
everything that we talked about.
Okay, are you cool with if we do it at the end?
Okay, that's
All
fine.
right, cool, thanks. What about rituals? Everyone likes to say, you know, I have this this regimen that I live by, and when I wake up, this is what I do, and then I do this, and then I do this. And without my, you know, consistent ritual, I wouldn't be as successful as I am. Do you guys subscribe to that? And if so, do you have any rituals?
Have you ever seen the movie Major League where he has that little thing Joe Boo in his locker and he does like the seance with the?
Yes.
That's my ritual, just so you know. No, I have no rituals personally. Sometimes I like to switch socks from one foot to the other. That's about it.
What about just daily habits, something like that?
Yeah, I'm up at I just started this, I've been doing it for a couple months. First of all, with our team, we have systems for everything. I don't know if you want to call it a ritual, but every single thing, every part of a transaction, whether it's buy, sell, rent, we have a system in place. So we have written down everything that we do when we're starting the process to when we finish the process. But first, my daily ritual,
Yes,
I'm up at 4:30
beginning
in
of
the
the day.
morning. Wake up at 4:30, I'm reading, you know, I like to read a little bit of philosophy. Right now I'm reading a little bit on Stoicism. Then I'll read like a little bit of self-improvement. I was reading some really good business books. Now I'm reading a book called The Whole Brain Child, just to try to like be a better parent and not freak out when my kids are going nuts.
How's that going?
Yeah, it's pretty good, yeah. And then, you know, journaling, I'm doing some journaling and stuff, writing down some gratitudes and affirmations, and then I go to the gym, and then I go to the office. And it's definitely in this insane market where there's just, I'm pulled in so many different directions. I have a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. We're going through the whole middle school application process. I'll tell you, my son, he's up at 6 a.m., so I need like an hour and a half. My wife is still sleeping. It's dark outside. It's totally just time for me. And I'm also in bed at like 9:30 or 10 at the latest. So it's been really good. It's been amazing. So it's like there's so much going on in all of our lives where we're pulled in so many different directions. Just having a moment of quiet.
Time of decompression.
Yeah, just to myself is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for years I've been, you know, doing yoga every day. And I typically, you know, I find a class, whether it's 7:15, 7:45, or 9 a.m., you know, because sometimes I do like to walk my kids to school. Last year I'll be doing that because my youngest are going to go into middle school next year. So yeah, I mean, for me, that's huge to have an hour where I'm working out. It's not really yoga anymore. It's more like these boot camp classes.
Yep.
But I have no phone in the class. I can't believe people bring phones in class. I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
get off your phone, like, really.
Right.
But an hour, no phone. I just, you know, peace of mind, kick my ass.
Sure.
And then.
And it helps you through the day. It helps.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel so much better after I have an hour, you know, workout in
Yeah.
the morning.
And maybe I used the wrong word with ritual. I think what I should have said is just sort of consistent plan that you follow throughout the day, because I know that you wake up very early and you exercise every morning, and
That
you
is
couldn't. You've told me before you couldn't function through the day without it. So, do you feel that really is important to your business? I mean,
Yeah, so I made the joke only because, despite the fact that we're labeled as top agents, I don't ever want someone to decide, oh, if I wake up at 5 in the morning, I'm going to be instantly successful. I think that's total nonsense, and I think people are always looking to steal somebody else's routine. And so I make the joke to say everybody should do what works best for them. I love waking up early. My mom woke up at 5:42 a.m. I heard her every morning growing up as a kid, and so I am just wired to wake up early. That's not some sort of like gung-ho, let me just get my shit going in the morning. I just happen to wake up super early, and it works for me. I also have like, I don't like working out when a gazillion people are at my gym, so I wake up and I go to the gym at 5 because nobody else is crazy enough to do that. So that's why I wake up early. That's my routine or ritual. But you know, to Randy's point, I like having time alone before shit gets crazy in the morning is definitely you know, a big part of it. But But yeah, I mean, we all have our routines, but I don't think any one routine leads to a different outcome of more or less success, is all I was saying.
Think, you know, to a certain extent, I remember, I've been doing this a really long time. I remember when I started out in rentals, and I had a team at my other company, and we were all advertising on Craigslist, and we were getting the same tenants coming in. And one day I called up, I was scheduling an appointment with this tenant to go show them a property, and I said, hey, you know, you want to meet at 10 a.m. on the corner of whatever and whatever. And they were like, okay, I'm actually meeting Karen at 9 on that corner. I was like, oh, what's she showing you?
Love her.
And it was like the same properties. And then I was like, I gotta freaking get up before Karen, because that's ridiculous. And it's like, that's in my control.
Good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So at that point, I was just like laissez-faire, you know, just starting the day when I woke up and wanting to do stuff. But then I realized if I'm like wanting to compete, and I do think this
There's
helps my
advantages.
business to a
Sure.
certain degree, you know, I want to be up before Danny's up. I want to be up before Jay's up. I want to be the first
You
one
beat me.
meeting Karen. You know what I'm saying? Like,
But just-
I want to be up first, and that's one of the reasons
You
why.
could just never go to
Why
sleep.
but we're like in the office
It's
every
accurate.
day. I'm in the office at 9 a.m. every day,
Yeah.
and Jay's people are already there. And to me, I'm like, you know, they're on top of their shit. Now,
Gotta
Danny's
step it
never
up.
in the office. This guy never
I was like,
comes
we
in,
gotta
and he's
step it
like
up.
destroying everybody. So it's like,
But-
I think,
but-
again, what works best for you, you know.
I think, like,
yeah.
to touch on, like, kind of the collectively, like.
And then we gotta get to Andrew, because I wanna hear about the science. part.
Andrew doesn't sleep.
His
He's
cold plunge sauna and marathon.
he's got a 24-hour
Well,
IV drip.
you know,
Do you eat liver? You do that too?
Do you eat liver?
Chop liver? I feel like the next thing Andrew's gonna tell us is he eats liver. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the most important thing is an outlet that takes away from like no phone, no like just like
For
some
sure.
type of break.
Exactly.
Like Joe is our morning person, and like I'm thankful that I have a business partner that I'm more of the night person on the team, and I would love to correct my early habits and be like you guys, but I work in different hours. But like I have an outlet like a couple times a week that I cannot use my phone, that I'm just in my own place, that gives me just like a distraction from work. And that I think has helped me for all of these years. And then also like one thing that we always do is we kind of like have a conversation at the end of the day just to kind of recap and like talk about like where we're at so that we can go like home with like everything off of them. I mean, stuff does come up when you get home, but at least we've like kind of concluded our day to like feel good going home, and then a lot of wine.
Yep. Makes sense.
Just to sorry, quickly, just to play devil's advocate with Randy, I think Randy's also kind of getting at like speed to lead, which I think everybody can agree is critically important, at least, you know, if in the younger stages of your business. You know, I used to have kind of like a fake partner at Warburg who you know, named June Gottlieb. And June, if you know June, is literally emailing you at 4 a.m. She wakes up at like 10 a.m. and goes to bed at 4. And the running joke when we would go meet people was like, I'll wake up at 4:30 and you pass the baton on. And we're basically like, we're on call 23 hours a day. That was like our like joking sales pitch, but it was actually really effective. And so my point though is like for every person who wants to start touring at 9 a.m, you know, to Randy's story, there's also people in the world who are expecting responses at 2:30 in the morning when I'm dead asleep and never going to respond. You know, unless I'm like partying in Vegas or something like that, and then I'll probably respond. But the point is, there's different types of people in the world, so you don't have to have a 5 a.m. morning routine. You could get a lot of great clients by being out super late at night. You know, if that's your shtick.
Yeah.
For us, you know, waking up early helps me turn off at the end of the day.
Got it.
Now it's never completely turned off. I'm always answering my phone. It's connected to me. It's like last night some guy starts texting me at like 8:30, 9, whatever. If I'm awake and I'm, you know, whatever, I'm gonna answer the phone
For sure.
or text or whatnot. But it does feel good to just feel like, okay, like I got what I needed to get done, and now I can like, you know, do my own thing. And
Andrew, we know your situation, but you want to add?
Yeah, no, I
anything?
think the key word you said, you rephrased consistency, right? Whatever you're doing, and you don't, until you are consistent for a long period of time, like I've fallen into a routine over the last year, the beautiful thing is, besides what you're accomplishing, like you're being fit, you know, you're eating healthy, like I realize for myself, I've become a more patient person, right? I've become less irritable. You know, if there are issues at home with my kids or at work, I can deal with it better, right? The beautiful thing is, you know, in order to succeed in anything, it has to be consistent over a long period of time. But it's not only that immediate benefit, right, that you look better or you've lost weight, but it's also like mentally the clarity that you get as a result of, and you build confidence, right? If you've done something for a month or you've done it for a year, like, holy shit, you know, I can do this. It builds, you know, mental strength and confidence. And we have a big thing we did at our firm in order to create that confidence and that foundation. If you speak to me today, as opposed to 2 years ago about my firm, about my office, right now I'm the most confident I've ever been because we standard operating procedures, SOPs. We're doing reviews, right? And we have a great team, and what I keep getting back to is the foundation. Like, we're built right now on communication, transparency, accessibility, and we can keep building, but that's going to be like the secret sauce, right? So, and the beautiful thing is, it just builds, right? It's like house, like you grow from these, you know, from the foundation, right? And you have these different ideas, and just like, you know, I guess what they say, you know, something in motion stays in motion, right? But you have to just get yourself going, figuring out what works for you, not worrying about, you know, other people in the competition, but understand, and it takes a little time, but the benefits, you know, are so much more than you think they're going to be. So that's the exciting part.
Have you always sold large, expensive lofts in Tribeca?
Me? God, no.
What was the first 3 years like?
Oh my God.
Drawings.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. I was really young back then. I must have been 23, 24 years old. I'm a lot older than that now. I only did rentals. I was living on the Upper West Side. It was just a totally different business. You needed quarters. You know, I mean, there were no phones back then. There was no internet back then. So it was a completely different animal. And I just learned very early on not to waste people's time. Because I was only doing rentals. So if someone's paying me a 15% fee, or whatever it was at the time, you know, you better be worth it. And you know, regardless of people using the argument, well, you only showed me one property. I'm like, right. Aren't you busy? Like, don't you have work to do? And like, you have to make more money? So did you want me to show you 5 shitty apartments before I showed you that one good one? No, I always show the best first. You know, but obviously sometimes you have to play the game depending on who you're working with. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. I worked really hard. And then when I did well, I got a one-way ticket and went to a third world country and took off for 4 to 6 months.
Wow.
And I did that consistently for almost 10 years.
Jeez.
Until I met my wife.
You started doing that how many years into your career?
My very first, I started in around February, and then in December I left for Korea and Thailand.
Got it. So after
And then I
the
got
first
back
year-
4 months later, and then I worked 7 months, then I took off 7 months. Went back to Southeast Asia and India and all over. And I did this consistently until I guess I was 30 on my 30th birthday tour. And then I met a hot Dutch girl, and I ended up marrying her.
And I used to do the same exact thing. When I worked in rentals, I was renting the cheapest apartments imaginable, everywhere from $100. I was renting whatever $600 to $800 studios, $1,000 one bedrooms, $1,200 two bedrooms, $1,500 three bedrooms, and we just had to deal with like these 10 Orthodox landlords that owned about 2,000 buildings, and they didn't want any co-brokes. They didn't want any other brokers showing it.
Right.
And we had a group of a bunch of agents. I had a little team under me, and the rental market would just die between Thanksgiving and New Year's. And I would just start freaking out because we had wasn't doing business, and I was actually also competing for business with Karen and the rest of the people on my team.
Karen.
So I also
Karen.
had a great situation because this was, you know, Wymark with Corcoran. Back in the day, I actually had my own account with Wymark, and I used to be able to charge $100 for an application fee. And it's like whether or not they get the apartment, I got $100.
That was before they changed the rule to $20. What was-
Exactly. And so I used to go away, and my team would do
Yeah.
all the deals, and then I'd come back, and
So
there'd
you
be
just
like a
collected
stack
bunch
of
applications and
of
paid for your
application
trips.
fees,
Yeah.
and I would just be like wherever in Europe for those weeks.
So to elaborate a little more on that question, what was the first 3 years, but when did you also start to feel like things were turning in your business and you were doing exponentially more than you were doing 2 years before that?
So for me, I never actually went the rental route, which is a lot of super successful agents have gone that route, and I think when my first year in the business, I think it was like Danny Davis does so many rentals. It was like I don't know why I remember that, and then obviously his business really evolved a ton. For me, my first year in the business, I was actually somebody's paid assistant, and I think he paid me $400 a week, if I remember correctly. I lived in Stuytown with a roommate. I paid my dues, so to speak, and I learned a ton. I worked for Robert Dankner. I'm sure you know
I know
Robert.
Robert.
Robert's a
Character.
fascinating human being, but also very smart broker, very good at his job. And so I just absorbed and learned. And then in my second year, I went to Warburg. That's where I met Andrew. Andrew has said I was very loud there, no
I think my
surprise.
first presentation was 27, and you were probably, what, 22? And
Something like that.
This kid was like drilling me. Lay low, give me a break.
I was very fortunate, though. I went to a firm that specialized in sales, and my whole routine was I like everybody, I would assume, I've always worked very hard. There's a lot of people who think they work hard. I would work 10 times harder than them. I used to stay in the office till like 12, 1 in the morning. It wasn't again, I don't model yourself off me. That wasn't a healthy way to build your business. It's just what I did. But one thing I think I did differently than the rental routine is I basically spent as much time as possible in the office when I was a young agent. As Randy alluded to, my team and I are big in the office. That's like a big part of our routine. It's a big part of our ethos. But what I did, though, I also used to dress much nicer when like Andrew, and agents in the office took note of my how I carried myself, my willingness to work, my willingness to put my head down and assist on anything they asked me to. They would pay me, a percentage of deals, et cetera. And by doing so, I would then be able to do an open house. And by doing the open house, I would meet a ton of buyers. I met some very notable public people at open houses and converted them and sold them apartments. And that's basically how my business built. But the only way I was able to get there was by making myself physically and known to the people at that company. At the time, that company was, and still is to some degree, has a little bit of like an elder statesman atmosphere. So people didn't want to be working on Sundays or 8 o'clock at night, and I was willing to do that work. And a little trade secret, if you pay attention to my team at all, I have team members who I hire because I see them in the office and I see that they're there working, and that's the type of person I want to hire, versus if I never know you exist, I'm unlikely to reach out and try to hire you for my team. So that was how I built my business, just basically latching on to as many people as possible.
And then did anything happen where you went from, chugging
Oh,
along,
right.
certain GCI to...
Yeah, well, so yeah, two things happen. One is, you start doing more open houses, you start getting more confident, you start understanding the conversation. You talk about routine, it's all scripts in some way or another. I mean, my team hears me, I say the same thing to my clients over and over and over again. I mean, it's almost like, memorized at this
My
point.
kids can recite
Right,
that.
it's the same shtick. And then what happened in sort of the third year to the fourth year, the numbers really started to change. And then, I made the investment, especially if you are in that point of your career, I made the investment to start building out the team. And I think that's really where you started to see exponential growth. Because I think when you're clinging on to a certain degree of GCI, whatever that threshold is for you, you worry that, if I hire someone and then have to give away X amount to that person in one form or another, I'm not going to make as much. But for me, and I think everybody else, the opposite happens. You start being able to push on more responsibility to your team and have your team really support you so that you can grow exponentially. And that's pretty much what happened. And for me, it was 2013.
Nick, question for you, same as them. First 3 years, and then we'll wrap it up with one last question because I know you guys gotta go.
I mean, the first 3 years are tough. It's no lie.
Yeah.
It's a survival point, and that's why this industry has so many licensed brokers and such a small percentage of people doing business. And like honestly, the big thing is getting through those 3 years. Like if you can get through that, you should look at your business, and if you aren't where it needs to be, it might not be the right industry, because that's about the point where you'll know whether you should push forward or change. I think year 3, year 4, depending on your model. We worked at a very small firm and then went to Corcoran because a lot of the real estate schools will pitch to you like, don't go to the big firm and be a small fish in a big pond. Go to like someone where you can get one-on-one training. Well, Corcoran's training and the resources of the other agents is tenfold to the small firm. So that was like a mistake that it all worked out, but like it was, I would say a company like Corcoran and Element and stuff like that have training in place. But like we did a lot of what Jay did is like we just made relationships. We were always available. We're big office guys. Like this is like a job for us. And I know, like I always like what you should take away from all of this is whatever works for you too. Not what works for me will work for you and vice versa. But we are office people. We're in there every day. We expect most of our team to be in there given circumstances, and relationships within the brokerage community is so strong. Like, I mean, we all compete, but there's enough to go around, and if you have a good reputation, I think it goes a long way. And
I agree with that.
my biggest point of the best, I wish I could go back, but like have your CRM intact. Like don't fall behind on that, because you think your 5 clients today, you'll never have 300, 400, 500. They come quick, and if you have everybody dialed in on their birthdays and their addresses and where the more information you have, I think the CRM is like one of the biggest tools you can have to stay on top of things.
We'll start with you, go down the line, and then we're gonna finish. 2 questions, you got 1 minute. What do you do to stay relevant, and what predictions do you have for 2023?
Relevant is easy as consistency. You have to show up every day, right? Showing up every day. And you don't have, my business, like you guys can hit a home run. I'm all singles, like not even singles, like bunts, right? Every day, little. When I first started in the business, I would take every broker I deal with out for breakfast or lunch. Fortunately, now I can speak in mass, but literally for probably a year or 2, the people I work for were supportive. I don't know when it's going to turn, but when it turns, it's going to come fast and furious, because there's a lot. We've been consistent. This week is above average, for us. I think we're outpacing the market based on everything we're talking about. I believe, another attorney poo-pooed a comment I made that I want to take a bigger piece of a smaller pie. We've done that, there's no question. But when it comes, again, in 6 months, a year, it's going to come hot and heavy. I don't know how long it'll last for, but that's why button up now, get your systems and processes, learn what a mortgage contingency is, learn what a SEMA is now. So I've been doing running, right? There's a term called be adventure ready, right? Somebody calls me today and wants to go running 12 miles tomorrow, I'm ready. So you need to be deal ready, to be active ready, market ready. You have to be in motion. You have to be doing things now. Maybe not deals, as many deals you're doing, but you have to be gearing up and ready to go, right? Because all of a sudden the market shifts, rates drop, and you're like, whoa, let me call my clients. Too late,
Yeah.
they've already called
Yeah.
them,
Nick?
To stay relevant, I think just being on top of the market and knowing your product and where, always know what's going on. I think it's important to know, outside factors that affect our business, like economics and the parts of that all come back to New York City, since this is the central hub. And then follow up, just consistently following up and staying on top of people. For the market next year, I think we're affected by the holidays right now. I think we're in a transition market, so that's got everybody hesitant because it hasn't broke yet. No one knows if it's a buyer, seller. Everyone's uncertain what's going on. I think once the levy breaks, which should probably fall towards the buyer's market, you're going to see everybody active. I think the big thing about what's going on in the world is New York is a very small piece of it that is not affected the way that the rest of the country is. People here have money, they can survive pandemics, they can sell when they want to and not buy. So I think everybody will just come back from the holidays, understand that this is the new norm, and hopefully get back to business.
Yeah, stay relevant, just consistently put myself out there, being front facing to my community. That was a big game changer for me. I came to Corcoran after 11 years of rentals. How did I get into sales? I just was out in front of my community constantly, meeting people, helping people at anything, just being a source of assistance in any facet of their lives, really. Just, you know, and so how do I stay relevant is just continually going to all of the soccer games, being involved in my synagogue, being involved in the parents groups, going to every single, you know, meet and greet with the new parents, just constantly being there and being up on the market so that I can be adventure ready when someone says, how's the market? What's happening next year? There's a lot of questions going on. So, you know, educating yourselves and being front facing with your community, with your network is absolutely key to staying relevant. And I'm not really, I might be different than everybody else, but I don't necessarily look at 2022. I'm not really concerned about it. We live in New York City. People are buying 2023. I don't even know when this is.
I was gonna say, I'm not concerned about 2022.
It's over. 2023, like, you know, people are still gonna have more kids, have less kids. They're still gonna need to buy, sell, rent, invest. It's just as long as you're doing the activities that are consistent, that are helping people, putting yourself out there, I'm not too worried about it.
Deals
And
will always be
working on
happening,
services.
be the one to do the deals, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just getting.
yeah,
more.
deals will always be
Danny,
happening.
what about you?
Yeah, I mean, stay true to yourself. You know, do what you do. I'm not gonna stop doing yoga. I'm not gonna stop taking my kids to school. You know, I still love doing my dog walk, you know, and go to the park, and then I end up picking up clients who are dog people now. I used to make fun of all the dog people until I got the pandemic pup. And again, if you have more time on your hands because you're not so busy, I mean, I did it yesterday. I went to at least 3 or 4 open houses. I don't have a client for it, but I wanted to see what the inventory is. And that is huge. I mean, you know, and so, and this is one of the reasons why I've been successful over the years. When I meet someone randomly and they come to me and say, and I'll never forget, because a woman just came to me the other day who just told me they're going to be hopefully moving to Detroit. And says, it's been 10 years and you sold me this apartment. And she's like, I'll never forget when I met you at this apartment in Soho. And within 2 minutes, you said, you're not going to buy this apartment. I said, this is not for you. And she's like, what are you talking about? So she and her husband were looking around and said, no, it's fine. Keep looking. You're not going to buy this apartment. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, I know where you're going to buy. And then after like 20 minutes of looking around, I took them to this other property and they bought it. And they were like, and we never forgot the fact that you just knew, and like you knew the inventory so well. We still looked at a couple more properties, but the one you said we were going to buy, we ended up buying.
But you also listened to what they wanted.
Of course.
Yeah.
You have to listen. I mean, that goes without saying. But you need to know what is, you know, and right now it shouldn't be that hard because there's not a whole lot of inventory. But just constantly, there's a lot of open houses. Take advantage of them. Go check out some inventory. Understand what's out there. And again, you know, when you're dealing with sellers, and if they want to tell you their place is worth more than it should be, and you know, you don't have to say, okay, I agree with you, it's worth that. It's not bad being the second or third broker, especially in this market. So you know, don't do what other brokers do, and will tell a seller exactly what they want to hear to get the listing, because you're going to waste a lot of time.
Prediction for next year?
If it weren't for 5 kids and married and a dog, I'd be taking off 6 months.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, the market, it is what it is. I think, you know, it's a time when the market's down, sellers are going to need us more. Buyers might not need us as much. I mean, that's why you need to know what's going on in the market. You have to have something to offer them. You know, we'll do deals. I think volume will be down considerably, but you know, we'll still do deals.
Yep.
You know, it won't be what it was the last, you know, 18 months or 2 years at that, you know, frenetic pace and insanity. But you know, it is what it is. I mean, the market goes like this. You know.
Jay?
To stay relevant, it's a hard question to answer. I would say do a really damn good job with the clients that you have, who will remember you, a la Danny's comment. I think that's been basically the guiding principle of my business. You know, be so good at your job that they'd be idiots not to rehire you if the time comes. So that's kind of something for us. You know, and also it's all kind of the same principles. Follow up, just try to get in front of your clients. For me, staying relevant is also relative to what your passions are. I'm not a big, black tie cocktail party kind of guy. I'm a golfer. I love golf, so I'll play a ton of golf as much as I can, and I get a lot of business on the golf course. So that's my relevance. As far as market predictions, I do think, we always talk about, pricing, is it strong, is it weak? There's also then the other conversation of transaction volume. I do think volume will probably be down, prices will probably be down a little, but per everybody on this panel, the show must go on and we'll all persevere. I think just reflecting that from a, money in your pocket perspective, when the times are good, 2021, 2022, save money. Be smart. I mean, obviously the ship has sailed on that if you've spent it all. But for future markets, be very prudent when you have a really good deal flow, and you're having a good year. Be thoughtful about how you're spending. Prepare. Prepare for the 6 months that you can go travel if that's what you want to do. By being thoughtful when times are good. So.
Good, thank you. Ernie?
Yeah, I have a certain situation now that you guys hit upon in your discussion about, pricing and whatever. As you probably know, Darren Kearns and Darren and I both have been in the business over 20 years, so I think we have a fair amount of experience. We sold a loft at 521 West 23rd in June, okay? On the third floor. And the next day after the closing, I got a call, Darren was away, from